Jake Paul, Andrew Tate. It's the fight that really makes perfect sense for everyone, and it's supposedly in the works, at least according to Keemstar, which we know isn't the best and most reliable news source. However, it's an intriguing matchup, and I think it actually might happen. This matchup really checks all the boxes for Jake Paul. I mean, what? It's gonna sell pretty decent. This fight's gonna do probably at least 300,000 buys, if I had to take an early guess. Andrew Tate, obviously very popular, polarizing figure. Trash talk to this is gonna be, it's gonna bring more attention to Jake Paul's name, and the storyline is so there. I know it doesn't seem like the storyline's there, but it actually really is, and they need to sell it like this. They need to sell this fight in a specific way to get that 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Jake's not doing any more than that. With Andrew Tate, I don't think he does anything like over 600 or 700,000, with the price being $60, $70. But if they want this fight to do those numbers, they need to sell this fight just in one way. They're gonna need to sell it like the loser of this fight leaves the internet forever. They are gone from the internet. Andrew Tate's had a fast rise to fame in the internet. Jake Paul has had a slow crawl, but he started off with a quick rise, but now he's kind of just been teetering out, gaining a little bit, just chilling, focusing solely on this boxing thing. So I think they need to sell it like the winner stays. The winner stays on the internet, king of the internet, and the loser has to leave. And I think this fight's really good for Jake Paul too. And another reason this fight makes a ton of sense for Jake, another box it does tick. Andrew Tate's an older guy, but he's an experienced combat sports. He's experienced in the game, combat sports. He's an experienced fighter. He's like 76-9. Different websites have him listed at different records, but that's like the rough, like what it averages out to be. But he hasn't fought the world's best competition, and Andrew Tate isn't known for his hands. If you watch Andrew Tate, you really break him down in his style. I did a full breakdown on Andrew Tate's kickboxing style in a past video, but if you really look at his style, one of his best weapons is bringing out one shot on one side and bringing a kick with it on that same side. Those are combinations that no one really expects. His best weapons really were his kicks when he was fighting. That was what made him more dynamic. I mean, his left high kick was his best shot. Like, he'd be throwing out left crescent kicks that are fast, left hook kicks that were decent as well. The guy was pretty solid, but one of his really best weapons was that in between. It is a left high kick, really, that would come behind a jab, or a right high kick that would come behind a cross. We know they're taking kind of change stances. I'm pretty sure he comes from karate as well. We've seen him change stances in kickboxing a lot. So I think that makes this matchup intriguing as well, because for Jake, we want to see this guy face someone like Anderson Silva. A lot of people want to see him get knocked out. And that would build up confidence for Jake, at least face someone that can switch stances. Andrew Tate's taken the internet by storm lately, and this fight would be just really intriguing overall because Andrew Tate doesn't have the best hands. He has a lower hand style as well. Jake Paul has a very powerful right hand, and there's a semi-background here with beef. Jake Paul claimed he didn't know who he was, but then supposedly on the next Impulsive episode, they throw some shots at him.
Jake Paul, it's clear to me you are desperate for a reality check. You know what? If I made my money impressing 4-year-olds on YouTube and managed to somehow become a multimillionaire from it, I'd probably live in a dream world too. But let me explain something to you about combat sports. There are a whole bunch of men out here who will never be as famous as you, will never make the money you've made, who would kick the living fuck out of you. This is the hardest sport in the world, and people dedicate their lives to this, and most of them never get a payday. It never pays off for the majority of fighters, who would fuck you up. I'm one of the lucky ones. I made a little bit of money. I don't have 50 million to bet with you, but I do have 3 million to bet with you. So this is your offer. $3 million. You put 3, I put 3. Winner takes all.
But as you can see from that clip, Andrew Tate kind of mimicked that original clip of Jake Paul that went kind of viral, where he called out McGregor, and he kind of imitated him and just kind of called him out in a way that like made sense. Put out a $3 million bet, and I don't know if they'll probably actually make some bet like this. I mean, the egos on these guys are massive, and it's going to make for an extremely entertaining event and spectacle if it happens. I really do think this fight does a lot of buys, and is what Jake Paul and his team are looking for. This is a fight that could go to MSG, and I think would do pretty well. I think they would be able to turn the lights on at Madison Square Garden, as Dana White put it, and it would make sense. It would actually make sense. But honestly, giving my expert opinion, I would really say this fight is pretty likely to happen. I'd give it like a 70-80% chance of happening. And early odds, this is something I'm going to start doing. Early odds that I would put out for this fight, I would have Jake as a pick'em favorite. I mean, maybe not like a complete pick'em, but this fight to me would be pretty like, I'd have Jake probably at like a -130 and Tate at like a +120. Like, this is a really competitive fight in my eyes because of the experience Tate has. But I think Jake deserves to be a favorite, maybe around the 150 range, actually. Main reasons for that is Andrew Tate's spoken about how he's had eye problems before, something that a lot of fighters do deal with, especially in kickboxing and MMA. It's kind of better for Jake because he's kind of fighting this guy at a handicap. This guy's he smokes cigars like every day. Like, he's been in this lifestyle that I think a lot of people would like. This is a good matchup for Jake because this guy hasn't been training. And yeah, we're just going to look at some quick footage of him on the pads. I'm going to analyze this mitt work really fast here. Not the whole thing, obviously, because it's mixed, but looks like he's just working the hands. He's got the Onyx gloves, too. Shouts to Trevor Whitman, man. Those gloves are so... I want to get a pair. Those are... I need to cop a pair. One day, we'll be able to afford them. But yeah, let's just get into this. So there's the jab. Very hands-low style. You could equate it to the more successful karate practitioners. Great job pivoting off that left hook there to generate the most amount of power. Also, another thing I didn't really talk about, these guys are close to the same size. Just unloads that combo. So really, from this footage, the experience that Andrew Tate has given him the ability to fight with that hands-down style. But I think... I know this like sounds stupid, but I really do believe that Jake could find a shot, could land a shot. I mean, I know Tate has good reflexes, but only concern would be the eyes, right? Like, that might be the only concern. He talked about that after I believe his last fight. Obviously the guy's gotten older, he's aged. He's not exactly where he used to be, in his full style, but from the footage we're seeing here, it's just not a lot of... like the most technical, like with the jab there. And I'm obviously not criticizing the guy. Like, he's got a ton of kickboxing experience, and kickboxing and boxing are very different. The way you can hold the hands, the way you can cover up in kickboxing compared to MMA, the way the guard can change, the way you can move people's guards around and influence their guards to set up hands or set up kicks. Very extremely different, but I just for this, I know he's just hitting pads, he's messing around. But with that left hook, man, I know perfect technique. You gotta be answering the phone, right? You gotta bring this hand up a little bit. And with this, you'd want to see, he brings it around good. The rotation on this lead foot is pretty solid. You don't need a ton of rotation. You don't need some crazy pivot. But you need some to generate more power and still be able to move well. Tate's movement is definitely his best asset. So that would really intrigue me to see how Jake deals with someone that can move around very well. The way he jabs there, he leads with his head. I think this is a pretty... this would be a problem for Tate in a potential matchup with Jake. You see the way he jabs here? The head stays way out here. And he really comes off this back foot, really putting a lot of power in this. And, you know, and then obviously the guy's just messing around on the pads, it seems like, really. But still, we can't take some takeaways from this. He could have gotten gas death, maybe they stopped. I doubt it, though. So that jab was a bit better, but really lots of push-off on this back foot, which you definitely need, but the way the leg almost comes off the ground. He's doing a good job of actually keeping that toe to the ground. It looked like he wasn't, but this shot, you can see the toe still on the ground, so not really much to complain about there. Okay. More of a flat-footed style, hitting the pads. Just very open for counters here. But the thing with Jake Paul is he's not some crazy, like, great counter puncher. He's just kind of like he's an all-rounder in the sense of boxing. I wouldn't call him some crazy great counter striker or, like, aggressor. He's pretty even. He can fight from a lot of different spots. He's just got a very powerful right hand, and you could see that come around. Like, the hands-down style of Tate, it's good. It would be confusing for Jake. It'd be hard to deal with. But really, I think this matchup versus Tate is just as intriguing as the Hasim Rahman Jr. fight really was. And I think it's kind of just going to replicate it in the, like, this way this will be intriguing. Tate obviously is more of a southpaw, orthodox fighter. Gosh, I'm tripping. Doesn't really switch a lot to southpaw. That's what I meant to say. Rahman would be able to switch pretty fluidly. Tate can fight from southpaw, but he's much more comfortable in the orthodox stance. Yeah, just not a ton to break down from this besides pretty flat-footed here off that. That goes straight down. You throw a left hook to the head, right? You bring it here. You want to replace, right? You don't want to bring it down and then replace. You want to replace as quick as possible. I know I'm not. You probably don't think I'm the most credible source because I look like a 12-year-old. Like, I don't know, but I'm actually not. So maybe you don't trust that. But still, like, the guy, he's just very open for counters, and we've seen that in his kickboxing career. He does get countered. Inside the pocket is a place where this fight would be really interesting to me, because Jake Paul has a tendency to duck his head going in the pocket and throw like this. Like, he will throw like that. I know people think of Jake Paul as a more technical fighter, but really he's not. The Woodley fight showed that, it kind of exposed that to a lot of people, that he's really not as technical as he's looked when he's fought lower competition. He does have a lot of power, though. You cannot discredit that. The guy's got crazy power. Like, legit, he's just got power. He's got natural power. But the thing with Tate is, inside the pocket, we've seen him multiple times in kickboxing. Inside the pocket, he will throw, he's willing to trade, and he's willing to take one to give one. But against Jake, I think inside the pocket exchanges in this fight, you'll probably see maybe 3 of them per round, 2 of them per round. That's where someone's going to go down in this fight if there's a knockdown, because Tate leads with his head out. Like, he's very confident in the way he can slip shots. We know he can slip shots, but still, it's just an intriguing matchup. He said he's going to take this seriously, and yeah, there's not much else to say.